This was the intro that we just looked at. So we're going to talk about these FICA and SECA taxes, what they are. They comprise that Social Security and Medicare tax. Who is covered by them? So who has to pay them? Coverage sounds like a benefit, right? But it's really, you get to pay something. So that's your benefit. You get to pay. What are the taxable wages? So that what goes into that wage base? What types of wages are exempt from these taxes? And then we'll also look at the calculations. So I'm going to start out. We have a couple little videos here that give you a little bit of history of Social Security. So obviously, these amounts are being withheld from employee paychecks. They must be paying for something, right? Hopefully. We hope that they're paying for something. And what the Social Security and Medicare taxes pay for, so again, they're two separate taxes because they're paying for two separate things. One is paying for the Social Security program in this country. And so Social Security covers individuals in retirement. It covers individuals if they become disabled permanently and totally disabled. The requirements for meeting that definition are pretty stringent, but for those who meet it, they can receive benefits. It also covers individuals who are survivors dependent survivors of workers who would have received Social Security benefits had they survived. So think of minor children who have a parent that passed away. That parent would have been eligible at some point in the future to receive Social Security benefits, but they passed away before they could start receiving them. The dependent children are entitled to what's called survivor benefits up to the age of 18. So it covers lots of different things. It's a very expensive program, and they keep threatening that it's going bankrupt. And the latest estimates are it's going to go bankrupt the year I'm supposed to start receiving benefits. So, which is awesome. But they keep threatening, because what happens is we have more benefits being paid out than taxes that are being collected. So first off, our workforce has reduced, and the number of retirees, all those baby boomers, are the ones that are receiving benefits. So we have this large population of individuals receiving benefits, but we have a smaller population of individuals who are paying benefits. And so some of the solution to that, there are lots of different potential solutions that are bantied about. One is to raise the retirement age. So right now, the age at which you can receive your full benefits, and your benefits are based on what you paid into the system and how long you paid into it. It's kind of like a traditional pension plan. So there's some complicated equation that goes into figuring out what your benefits are, but the basics are how long did you pay in and what was your salary when you were paying in. And that helps to determine how much your benefits are, but you don't get to receive those full benefits until you reach what they call your retirement age. Everybody in here and me has a retirement age of 67. The retirement age currently is 66, but it's going to soon, in the next few years, I can't remember exactly when it happens, but it will switch over to 67. So one of the options is to raise the retirement age. Because when you raise the retirement age, it means that population who would have been receiving benefits, so you say they raise it to 68, so everybody, instead of working until they're 67, now they've got to work an extra year until they're 68 to receive the full benefits. That means that they're paying into the system for a year longer, and they're receiving benefits for a year less. So that's one of the options. Another option is to change the tax rate for Social Security. We'll go through what the tax rate is, but that means that everybody who's paying into it would then pay more than what they're currently paying, raise that tax rate. Another option that they've talked about is changing the tax base for Social Security, increasing it, widening it. In order to get this number to go up, either this number has to go up or this number has to go up, or both have to go up. Right? So another option is to increase the amount of income that is subject to Social Security tax in order to fix that. Obviously, I don't know what the answer is. If I knew what the answer was, I probably wouldn't be here. But there are a lot of different options. There are a lot of problems with the program. These videos just give you a little bit of history about it. When it was implemented, why it was implemented, who implemented it, because we haven't always had Social Security or Medicare. We haven't, I think Social Security system has been around for 90 years. It's another one of those laws that was enacted during the Great Depression, and it was in response to the Great Depression and the economic conditions during that time. Medicare was enacted actually in 1965. So it hasn't, what is that, 60 years? It's been around, is that 60 years? Holy cow, yeah, that's 60 years. So it's been around a little bit less, but this just gives us a little bit of history. So let me, and hopefully, let's see the volume. Let me shut this. I got a complaint last class period that it was too loud.
Social Security is a system where people pay an extra tax on their payroll and wages to fund government-assisted programs and benefits. Today, money from Social Security payments provides pensions to the elderly, the disabled, the unemployed, and their dependents. But Social Security hasn't always existed. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt changed all of that when he came into office in 1933. FDR was not only tasked with helping Americans survive the Great Depression, but also with figuring out how to improve the lives of people in a rapidly industrializing America. How could America provide its citizens with a social safety net if an economic downturn were to happen again? Upon taking office, he announced the New Deal, a series of programs and projects that aim to provide relief for Americans and institute crucial economic reforms. However, critics complained that these measures were too conservative and temporary in nature. A variety of social safety net proposals gained broad popular support across the nation. So, in 1935, FDR announced the second New Deal, which included the Social Security Act, signed into law on August 15th. Workers pay into pension funds, and once they retire, they receive payments back from that same fund in proportion to their own payroll deductions over the years. Implementing Social Security was not an easy task. To secure the system against attacks from its political enemies in the Republican Party, the Roosevelt administration set up the system as an insurance rather than a welfare program. Every citizen was assigned a Social Security account number. During the remainder of the 20th century, Social Security went through many changes as the Act was amended several times. The 1939 amendments added dependent benefits for the spouse and minor children of a retired worker, and also survivor's benefits to be paid to the family of a covered worker in the event of premature death. In 1950 and 1954, Congress made foreign and domestic service workers eligible for Social Security. In 1956, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed into law amendments to the Social Security Act, which established the Social Security and Disability Insurance Program. Under President Johnson, the amendments of 1965 created Medicare, a basic program of hospital insurance for persons aged 65 and older. In 1983, under Reagan, further amendments made Social Security payouts subject to taxes and began to gradually raise the age of retirement. To this day, Social Security remains a central part of many elderly Americans' lives, allowing them to feel some economic security in their old age. The proportion of retirees to workers on payrolls increases as Americans have longer lifespans, leading to increasing debate over the viability of Social Security, the centerpiece of FDR's New Deal legacy.
So the Social Security wasn't always taxed?
It wasn't, yeah. So that started in what did they say, 83? So now, Social Security, and you'll learn this when you take income tax accounting, by the way. which I look forward to seeing all of you again in income tax accounting. You'll learn that not all Social Security benefits are taxable. Only up to 85% of your Social Security benefits that are received could be subject to tax, but the amount that is taxable is based on your other income. So for a lot of low-income individuals, if they have no other income or very little other income, none of their Social Security benefits are taxable. Also, with the new tax law, they've implemented, I think it's a $6,000 deduction, something like that. So if you receive Social Security benefits, you'll get to deduct $6,000. Don't quote me on the $6,000. They're just coming out with all the regulations, so keeping up with them is difficult. But like the first $6,000, if it is taxable, like the first $6,000 would not be taxable. But in order for 85% of your benefits to be taxable, you have to be in a fairly high, you have to be receiving a lot of other income. So if you have a pension and Social Security benefits, and by the way, there's no means testing with Social Security. And what I mean by that, and that's another one of the proposals, is to introduce means testing, which means that they would look at whether you receive benefits or not would be based on whether you're receiving other income and how much other income. So if you've got a pension that's paying you $200,000 a year, right now, you're still entitled to your full Social Security. If you're receiving $1 million a year in retirement, you still get your full Social Security. So there are those that believe that it should be based on whether you actually need it or not. So somebody who's making $1 million elsewhere probably doesn't need that $30,000 a year in Social Security or whatever they're receiving. And that would be means testing. What are your other means of income to determine whether you receive the benefits? Now, that has nothing to do with whether you pay in. You still would have paid in. And a lot of people are under the mistaken idea that what you pay in is what you get out. That is not the case. You are paying into a giant system that the amount of benefits that you actually receive out of it is based partially on what you've paid in and how many years you worked, but it's not exact. It's not like I paid in $100,000 of benefits over my working life, so therefore I'm going to get $100,000 back. That is not the case. You may pay in $100,000 and get $10,000 back because you die within 6 months of receiving your benefits. It has some correlation with how much you paid in, but it is not a direct correlation. So, and your original question, I'm sorry. I went out. Okay. Yeah. So, it's an interesting program. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the earliest you can, cash in your Social Security benefits, save classified as disabled?
So if you're disabled, if you go through and they say you're totally and permanently disabled, there's no age.
There's no age.
Yeah.
What about a time of death? Like, what's the age cap on that, and who receives the Social Security benefits?
So it depends. Okay. So if you're, say you're 70 years old and you have a 72-year-old spouse, and the 70-year-old passes away, I think at that point, the surviving spouse gets to choose. If your benefits were higher, they could then take the decedent's benefits, or they could continue to take their benefits. So but it ends when you die, essentially, unless you have minor children, and then those minor children would receive benefits until they turn 18.
Okay, so what about if you pass before you ever receive Social Security benefits?
It's gone.
They're just gone?
Yep, they go into the system. Yep. Yeah, so if you were to pass away, you don't have dependent children, you don't have a spouse, it's gone. So that's why I said it's an insurance, as I said, it's an insurance program, right? And with insurance, you only receive it if you need it, right? You're not going to get anything back. You don't get a refund on premiums because you didn't crash your car, right? It's insurance to protect you in the future. So I'll show this other video here, which is just a little bit more about the history. It's not very long. It's like 3 or 4 minutes.
To be in deal deals. the Social Security Act. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, elder care and support was generally provided by family and friends within largely agrarian societies, while early in the 17th century, Great Britain established poor laws, which was the first time that a government acknowledged its responsibility to the elderly, the disabled, and the less fortunate of her citizens. After the Pilgrims brought England's poor laws with them into the New World, the first major American public assistance program began during the Civil War, when the federal government began making payments to hundreds of thousands of disabled veterans or their widows and orphans left behind by a veteran's ultimate sacrifice. Beginning in the 1870s, the Industrial Revolution dramatically reshaped the American landscape, enticing many to leave family farms for expanding job opportunities available within industrialized cities. While rising urbanization ushered in improved sanitation, increased life expectancy, and affluence for many Americans, the divide separating the elderly, the disabled, and the less fortunate became much more apparent, while the Great Depression left millions of Americans unemployed, underfed, and desperate for outside help. That all changed when President Franklin D. Roosevelt implemented his New Deal policies intended to offer a hand up to struggling Americans, including the Social Security Act of 1935. Borrowing the concept first employed in Europe, FDR proposed a system in which working-age Americans contributed part of their income into a payroll tax maintained by their employer, setting in motion a perpetual means of compensation to the retired generation of workers who came before them. After a period of heated debate in both houses of Congress, FDR signed the Social Security Act into law on August 14, 1935, which in turn created a retirement pension program, an unemployment insurance program funded by employers, health insurance for people experiencing temporary financial distress, financial aid for widows with children, and financial assistance to disabled individuals. A little more than a week after its rollout, more than 1 million Americans had enrolled in the program, receiving Social Security cards that bore their unique Social Security number, while 4 months later, 26 million Americans now used their Social Security numbers to track their earnings and accrued benefits, making the Social Security an ongoing safety net for Americans everywhere. And there you have it, the Social Security Act of 1935. Today in the Daily Dose. If you like learning something new every day,
sorry.
subscribe to the Daily Dose on YouTube.
All right, so just a little bit of history there.